Hello, welcome to the Happy Families podcast. Kids these days. What is the deal with kids these days? I feel like I've literally just become a talkback radio host. Kids these days. Fair dinkum. Give us a call on the open line now. Tell us what kids these days. That's how it feels, right? It feels like I'm a boomer who's complaining about kids these days.
You're getting close.
Oh, that hurts. I can't believe you said that.
You just turned 50.
The kids these days effect. Every generation thinks that the younger generation is going to the dogs. It's a tendency that traces back millennia. And a fascinating new study has just been published that explores where this perception comes from, finds out that it's wrong and points to two main culprits. Today on the Happy Families podcast, we unpack why previous generations think current generations are just not made to handle life, why they're wrong, and where these ideas come from. This is going to be a really fun one. It's the doctor's desk on the Happy Families podcast. All that and more coming up next. Stay with us. Hello and welcome to the Happy Families podcast. We are so glad you've joined us. We're Justin and Kylie Coulson. This is Australia's most downloaded parenting podcast where you get real parenting solutions every single day. Today, a quick lesson in charity, compassion, and long memories. Kylie, do you think that kids back in the day were more respectful than kids today? Trick question, perhaps. Are you looking at me with that scrunched up face like, where are you going? Are you going to try and get me on this one?
I have to say yes.
Oh, are you falling for the kids these days fallacy? Kylie?
No, I'm not. But I listen to the things that happen in the classroom and they didn't happen in my space.
Didn't happen in your day.
No, I'm not saying my day, but I didn't experience it and I didn't have conversations with people where it was happening.
Interesting. What about intelligence? Do you think that kids today are just less intelligent than...
No. No, for the most part, that was a really trick question for me because for the most part, I don't actually have a generational thing. I think that too often, I have so many conversations with people where they're reminiscing about, kind of the 70s when we were growing up or the 80s or whatever. And I feel like they've got a bit of the rose-coloured glasses syndrome going on.
Yeah.
Because they talk about it like it's this fairy utopia of, just brilliance and
we had it right.
Days.
We did it right. We're romanticising and getting nostalgic about the past.
But it really wasn't.
Yeah.
It was hard.
So let me tell you about this study because it caught my attention and I really, really like this one. This is in the journal Science Advances, published a couple of years ago, actually. It was published just before COVID, but I don't think that makes any real difference because the kids these days phenomenon has been around since, we've got recorded history from the 600s BC where people are saying kids these days, they're not respectful like we used to be. And it seems like it's ubiquitous. It seems to go across not just the generations, but across cultures as well. So let me walk you through this.
We did have corporal punishment back then.
That's what they'll say on the talkback shows. Kids were more respectful back then because they knew they were going to get a wallop. Yeah. I think kids were just sneakier back then because they knew they were going to get a wallop. So here's what happened. Why the youth of today seem lacking. That's the study by John Protzko and Jonathan Schooler. In 5 pre-registered studies, pre-registered means that they're doing science the right way and you can sort of get in there early. You know exactly what they're going to do and they're not going to mine the data to find some kind of solution because they're not finding what they're looking for. They have a look at people's tendency to believe that kids these days are deficient relative to kids of previous generations. And they had a look, it's a US study, but they had 3,500 American adults, and they found that adults today believe that today's youth are in decline. They're going backwards. Authoritarian people especially think youth are less respectful of their elders. Intelligent people especially think youth are less intelligent, and well-read people especially think youth enjoy reading less. And basically the rest of the study was about working out what are the mechanisms behind these beliefs. Why is it that people believe what they believe about kids these days?
It reminds me of a quote that you've shared multiple times on the podcast. Something along the lines of, the past is a foreign country. They do things differently there. Is it something like that?
Yeah, that's exactly it. They do things differently there. It's from a novel called The Go-Between by L.P. Hartley.
And I think about my upbringing and I think about the experiences that I had as a youth, and I think about how much I've learnt and grown and therefore have changed the way I interact with our children. And it's so hard to look back and judge the youth of our time based on what we now know.
Right. And that's one of the key mechanisms. You've just tapped into one of the two things that these researchers found. So what I want to do just before the break is I want to share the two mechanisms that underpin why adults are doing this. And while there is some evidence for some of these things being problematic and challenging, why this belief has persisted across generations and whether it is or is not true. So mechanism number one is when we denigrate kids, we denigrate the rising generation, because what we tend to do is we notice the limitations of other people, particularly in areas that we're excelling. Okay, so somebody who is quite authoritarian, that means that they're big on respect, they're going to notice where disrespect exists. And if that's a strong, or somebody who reads a lot, they're going to notice kids are on screens these days. Somebody who is more intelligent is going to be like, oh, kids these days are like they're non-verbal.
Yeah, but screens are going to be a huge one because we didn't have a screen.
Of course. So these things stand out and make us much more likely to denigrate the rising generation. The other mechanism behind this is that we think that we've always been how we are now. So I look at myself and I think, well, I believe what I believe and I act the way that I act, and this is how I've always been. And kids these days, I mean, they're just so immature. They just haven't figured this stuff out. So I have a journal that I kept when I was a teenager and a young adult, and every now and again I flick through it and I read it, and I struggle to read it because I can't believe how immature I was. I can't believe the things that I said, the things that I thought, I mean, I don't think I was a bad kid, but oh my goodness, I shake my head and think, really? You actually said that? Like, come on, you goober.
But we do this in our homes all the time. We get our children in trouble for things, expecting them to do something that we could never have done at the same age they were at.
Yeah, that's right. And that's where this kids these days effect comes from. After the break, I want to talk a bit more about it, including a quick summary of some ideas that I've got around why this belief exists and why it's bad. We're back. This is the Happy Families podcast. If you like what you're hearing, please give us a follow and share the podcast with those around you so that it can make other people's families happy as well. In the podcast today, kids these days, Kylie, I want to make a couple of arguments, a couple of statements about why this is a bit of an issue. The first is that every generation complains about the next, and they always have. Adults have literally, we've got so many great quotes through the centuries, through the millennia, where adults have been lamenting that kids these days are worse or lazier or more disrespectful. And the complaints haven't changed across the centuries. Like, people today are still making the same complaints as people 100 years ago or 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago. Literally the same complaints. Kids today are disrespectful, don't respect their elders, they're lazy, they're indolent, they're not going anywhere, they're not doing anything, they're not learning. And yet kids still make it. Like, it's just...
Is it just because we're all deluded?
Yeah. Yes, it actually is. It actually is.
What's crazy is that when you actually look at the evidence, kids are doing better than they've ever done in so many areas.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely areas for us to be worried, but I genuinely think that a lot of this is media beat up. A lot of this is hype. Mental health challenges, education challenges, they've always existed. And part of what's going on here, the reason, if anything, that things are worse is not because of kids, rather it's because of what the adults are doing to the world.
Yeah.
The mental health industrial complex as it exists now did not exist when we were growing up, and kids then didn't have the same mental health challenges because parents were more available. The cost of living was more affordable. People lived, I would argue, reasonably more balanced lives, hopefully. And I'm not trying to get romantic or nostalgic about the past, but also there was not this huge mental health industrial complex out there telling everybody that they had anxiety and depression.
And they needed to be medicated.
Yeah, like Big Pharma and big mental health are, I genuinely believe, are responsible, literally responsible for at least part of the enormous increase in mental health challenges. Has society changed as well? Yes, it has. Is that part of the problem? Yes, it is. But anyway, the second key point bouncing out of this study is, and the researchers mentioned it, but it's one that I want to hammer home: nostalgia distorts memory. So we romanticize our own youth. We forget that we were criticized in exactly the same ways when we were young. That's why I tell the story about why I hated high school, why I barely finished, how I had a whole lot of attitude. I gave my parents a hard time. I share that because I don't want to forget that I was a pain in the bum. And so when our kids are being a pain in the bum, it's my way of remembering, well, I was too. And that's just what kids are, as they're trying to figure themselves out in a society that does not make it easy for them.
You suggested you had a few points. What's your next one?
So I think, and this is kind of a bit of a gut punch to us as adults, but I think the complaints reveal more about us than about the kids.
A lack of tolerance?
Yeah, like starting with the man in the mirror, to quote, I don't know if I want to quote Michael Jackson, actually. His reputation has not stood well under scrutiny, but basically all of these criticisms about kids these days seem to reflect our anxieties and our resistance to change.
But do you think it's that, or do you think it's actually more to do with, especially from a parenting perspective, our anxieties around what other people will think of us as a result of where our kids are?
There's probably a little bit of that. I know how I feel about the kids being on screens, but I know how much I was on a screen, and I hope the kids aren't listening to this episode as it drops, because I was on screen so much. I mean, I was outside 1,000 times more than the kids as well, but I would come home from a 6-hour surf on a Saturday morning, and I'd just plonk myself on the couch and watch Channel 9's Wide World of Sports all Saturday afternoon. I'd watch it for 5 or 6 hours and would not move. And my parents were okay with me sitting on the couch for 5 or 6 hours on a Saturday over. That's just what I did. Today, if a child was doing that, if one of our children were doing that, I'd be up in arms. I'd be like, come on, get outside, move your body. Having said that, I had been a champion swimmer and doing all the surfing and all that sort of thing. So it's kind of a bit...
Are you justifying?
Yeah, it's a bit here, it's a bit there. Thanks for that. There's another point that I wanted to make as well, and that is that the evidence doesn't actually support the decline narrative. So it is true that some evidence in the last handful of years is showing that young people are less conscientious, are more lonely, are less likely to persist with something difficult. That evidence does seem to be there, but I want to really hasten to add the best evidence comes from a big American survey that was looked at in the Financial Times just recently by a guy called John Byrne Murdoch, and the youngest age group he looked at was the 16 to 39-year-old age group, relative to the 40 to 60 age group and then the 60 plus age group. 16 to 39 is a massive age group, a huge developmental difference, but the younger age group, and we're talking about up to 40, it's certainly getting worse outcomes than you'd like. But I when we have a look at what the evidence shows objectively, at a general level, young people are often more tolerant, they're more socially conscious, and they're more capable than previous generations. I just think we're riding our young people way too hard. And the last thing is that the complaints are harmful. Like, we're denigrating them. These constant negative characterizations, they have to do some damage to intergenerational relationships. They have to become self-fulfilling prophecies that are going to undermine young people's potential and confidence. And I don't think it's helpful. So kids these days, it's not a helpful conversation. I think we've got to believe in our kids. I think we've got to support our kids, and we've got to push them in positive directions, not keep on bagging them and telling them how they're not adequate.
Well, I think that you've proved your point.
Good.
A million times over.
Thank you. Sorry.
That you are joining the boomers with your whinging and complaining.
No, I thought you were saying something nice about me and you've gone there. We need to wrap it up. The Happy Families Podcast. I hope you liked this Doctor's Desk episode. Gosh, the Happy Families Podcast has produced kids these days. It's you these days. And you know what? Before I finish with JR's special outro, people say kids these days, but if you talk to anybody who works in the services industries, anyone who works in a restaurant, who works in retail, who works in a public-facing industry, they will tell you that it's the boomers, adults. It's the adults that are much more disrespectful, that are much more entitled. Yeah, that just get stuck into people and dig their heels in and have tantrums in restaurants and shop fronts because their steak hasn't been cooked quite right. Or
we've got 3 girls working in retail at the moment, and I am just bewildered.
Yeah.
At the level of entitlement that people have.
Yeah. And it's not just the old blokes. Like my mum's name is Karen, so I hate this title, but our girls have come home many times and said the 60 and 70-year-old Karens that come in are just
and the way they just brutally attack.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our girls come home nearly in tears as they kind of share experiences where they've just been berated for nothing more than they didn't have their size.
Yeah. Respectfulness, laziness, all the things that kids are being bagged for. I think it's cross-generational. We just can't. We
don't see it.
Can't write off an entire cohort, an entire generation, just because we see a couple of bad examples. It happens at every stratum and every age and every cohort and every part of society. Now I feel like we're finished. That was good. That was good. Be nice to people. Be productive. Be respectful. Read a book. Turn off your screen.
Go for a run.
No matter how old you are. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. Justin, we appreciate your work so much. Doing such a great job for us. Mim Hammonds provides research, admin, and other support. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please share it with a friend. Leave us a 5-star review and post a comment about why you like the pod. We'll be back tomorrow with more on the Happy Families podcast. And I'll do better tomorrow, analysing the week that was, working out what worked, what didn't, and how we can be better tomorrow. Thanks for joining us on the Happy Families podcast.